Thank you. Town Administrator?
Yes.
Town Council?
All
Board
set.
members? Okay. I'd like to welcome you all here this evening. This is the Select Board meeting of Monday, February 24th, 2025, and we are in the Town Hall Select Board Chamber. Time is now 6:30. I'd like to make a motion to bring this meeting to order. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion been made and duly recorded. Roll call is in order. Ms. Fidler?
Aye.
Mr. Darcy?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Unanimous vote to open a Select Board meeting for February 24, 2025.
Excellent, thank you. The meeting is being recorded by MCM, and I'd like to ask you to join me in a Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'd like to start off by a few chair comments. I'm going to leave it pretty quick and to the point. This meeting is a very important meeting for our select board here in Marshfield, and I wanted to share a few of the things that I've been working on and bring it to the attention of our board members and the public. This past week, I was able to attend the beach renourishment program that we have working here, and this project has been part of a Marshfield collaborative type thing we've been working on. We did with Duxbury last year in 2024. The town of Marshfield has had a couple town meetings where we pledged in town meeting to do the matches for this. So the town has an investment in this as well. And so the coastal zone management is something that we all need to be aware of. I believe there's 83% of our beach, our shoreline has seawalls. So part of protecting our seawalls is part of what this project is about. And there is a link on our website for anybody that wants to look into it, because it's a really cool thing. And if you're over in that neck of the woods, you'll notice there's some trucks going. I think we have like 100 trucks a day right now. We should be done mid-March. I think March 14th is the date, but it's a really cool project. Everybody's wondering if these nor'easters that we have are going to blow all that sand out. The sand repeats itself and comes back in the summer. So when we're walking our animals or walking with the kids or just getting out there for a little bit of a stroll, I believe it was last year was the first time we could actually do this in a long period of time, where you could actually walk the walk at a high tide. So it's really important that we're aware of it and we kind of keep in tune with that. So I'd like to bring that to your attention. We also have on the agenda tonight a few things, but I want to just start with a little bit of a synopsis of where we have been with the MBTA Communities Act, because that has been, it doesn't matter where I am right now. It could be at my own kitchen table with somebody walking in. Everybody wants to know. It's a big deal. So I want to just give you, because we're going to talk about it later, but we're all here. I want to just get this out in my chair comments. So, town meeting, April 24th, 2024. The town voted no on the MBTA Communities Act. The town meeting again was presented with the MBTA Community Act, and it was a proposal by our planning board. And the location is also on our website, but it's up to the right after Direct Granite, after the Furnace Brook, going up on the right side, all the way up to the corner of School Street. So that's the general location. If you're not aware of it, go onto the website, check it out. So town meeting December 16th, it was another irrevocable and very strong vote in the no for that. So that's where we stood on December 16th. Fast forward, there was an action plan required by the EOHLC through their state regulations that our planning board needed to present to our select board within 30 days another action plan for the same MBTA program or project. So it came in front of the select board 2 weeks ago. My select board members were here. We voted 3-0 not to accept the action plan because the action plan itself was identical to the plan and the location, conditions, etc., that our town meeting voted no on. So, after that happened, we waited and we received a letter from our executive offices of Housing Livable Communities last week that is on our agenda today. And that letter informed the town that we are not in compliance. Okay? So that is on our agenda. So we also have another item here on the agenda. So that was, I'm going to just give you the information on our agenda tonight. So we have that as a board discussion. And we also, because we were unaware when we posted our agenda, 48 hours, on Friday afternoon, we received that there was an unfunded mandate determination by the state auditor for Methuen. So you'll see that we have an amended agenda this evening, and that was amended on our website on Saturday. So we will be discussing that as well. Okay, so I think that is it from the chair comments. It's a lot, and we will probably I'll probably be saying this again later, and my board members will be helping me with this as well. So we also have this evening, a lot of you are here, and before we get to our town administrator report, I want to explain the public comment portion of our meetings. So we currently have Jim Tracy, Kimberly Wilkinson, Kevin McGuire, Susan Karen, Krista Morvik, and Donna Green on our sign up for public comment. So these public comments are 2 minutes, you'll be timed. The board itself will not be engaging in your questions or comments, but we have the option after the fact, after we go and do our rest of our business tonight, to reach out to you. So there is that as something I want to make sure that you're all aware of. So with that being said, let's join in and listen to our town administrator report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had my weekly call in last week to WATD to discuss current events and review the select board agenda for last month's 2 weeks ago meeting. Hosted the weekly DPW meeting with John Patterson and Sharon Studley, our treasurer and town accountant, to discuss financial matters, the FY26 budget, beach nourishment contract, requisition for additional cobble and sand. We also discussed moving to fleet management for all our vehicles as a way to save money for the town. DPW needs to replace one of their 10-wheel dump trucks. They'd prefer to purchase a Mack truck. We meet every other week. Hosted a meeting with Tom Hickey to discuss the debt exclusion ballot question that will be required regarding the South Shore Regional Technical and Vocational School. We also talked about timing, operational cost, and scheduling. I've had a meeting with Sean Strobel and Meg LeMay to review and discuss our capital improvement plan, necessary funding and borrowing that will be needed to cover the priority needs from the various departments. Attended and participated in the Mayflower Municipal Health Group Steering Committee. Mayflower Municipal Health Group is in great financial shape, net assets over $32 million. After presentation by Locked-In, the financial consulting company for Mayflower, the steering committee, of which I'm a voting member, voted to recommend a 7% increase in all health plans with an estimated surplus drawdown of $3,900,000, and the town of Situate was voted to return to Mass Municipal Health Group as of July 1st, 2025. Participated in the Opiate Fund Committee meeting where the committee reviewed in depth the findings of their survey many of our residents participated in a few months ago. The results will be published on the town's website later this week. The committee also approved the release of its official application for its first round of grants. Applications are due back no later than May 1st. Applications can be downloaded from the town's website. The committee's next meeting will be March 18, 2025, 2 p.m. in the Select Board Chamber. Attended and participated in the Marshfield Affordable Housing Trust, where we discussed the annual LIP monitoring letters, reviewed the draft purchase and sale agreement for 1929 Main Street, and discussed the improvements that would be needed to be done on 115 Revere Street. The committee also approved the housing coordinator's FAQ for the town's webpage. Participated in a mediation session with Joint Labor Management Council, with our Labor Council on behalf of the town of Marshfield. Hosted a meeting with Ned Bangs regarding the summer concert series that are tentatively scheduled for July 20th, 27th, August 3rd, August 10th, August 17th, the rain date, and will begin at 5. All concerts begin at 5 p.m. Concerts are funded by the Cultural Council. Ned also discussed the Taylor Fund Woodland area to add to the trails off of South River Street adjacent to the Chandler property. The trail will require an easement, and they'll ask town council to prepare the necessary paperwork for the fall special town meeting. Attended Ed Sullivan's wake. Ed was a longtime dedicated veteran, worked tirelessly on behalf of so many veterans to make sure that they received the benefits they deserved and were entitled to receive. May he rest in peace. Karen and Lisa were a huge help to Ed's family during these very difficult times. Hosted a meeting with our treasurer and town accountant regarding a spending freeze for all departments for their FY25 budget to slow down spending. Meeting with Fred, our facilities director, to go over town projects that will be wrapping up, especially the fire at the fire headquarters. That included the new men and women bathrooms, lockers, and showers, town hall new front and rear doors, bathroom repairs and roof repairs at the Ventress Library. We also discussed the need to replace the roof on the Martinson Hills Firehouse and work to be done at the Daniel Webster Estate to improve air circulation, safety lighting, safety alarms, and repairs in the cellar. Hosted a meeting with the Historic Commission, Cindy Castro and Jack Aruka, along with Fred Russell, our town facility director, to review the action plan to restore the historic blacksmith shop located on the Winslow property on Webster Street. This unique blacksmith shop sees every third grader yearly. Special thanks to the resident blacksmith, Jim Fitzgerald, who's also our moderator. Hosted a finance meeting with Sean and Meg to review the spending rates of each department, review the capital budgets as requested for each department, and any outstanding contracts or unresolved procurement issues. Participated in the Marshfield Beach Nourishment meeting in the Select Room Chamber to review its progress, hosted by the Woods Hole Group and Leslie Fields. Project is on schedule. It needs to have some additional sand and gravel added to the project. DPW will prepare the procurement documents and reach out to the AG's office, working with town council. Project must be completed by March 28th, and all equipment must be off the beach by that date. Hosted the town administrator's monthly department head meeting at the Ventress Library to discuss the closing of the special town meeting warrant on February 28th, the joint select board and advisory board meeting on March 25th, town elections on May 3rd. We also reviewed procurement guidelines, spending rates, capital budget requests, the Veterans Park Ecological Project, and updates on Beach Nourishment Project in Green Harbor on Bay Avenue. Had a meeting with Jeff Granatino from the Atlantic Resiliency, which is the partnership with the town schools, chamber, and Northeastern University, to get an update on the program and future events. They'll be hosting an event in April. Participated in a webinar with Marshfield MCM Cable, Robert Goitis, regarding the Beach Nourishment Project in Green Harbor. Discussed the reasons for beach nourishment and the success from the first project. Hosted a meeting with Greg Emont and Ned Bangs regarding Red Gold Farm and a possibility of hosting a cranberry festival in the fall. Meeting with Sue Karen regarding the South River Park expansion and the open space plan that she'll be presenting to the select board to accept on February 24th. Participated in a special select board meeting on February 20th for the board to approve and sign the letter to the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities on what Marshfield has done to create affordable housing over the last 20 years. Select Board also voted to allow DPW to deficit spend their snow and ice account as required by Mass General laws. Hosted a meeting with Rick Smith, Chair of the Advisory Board regarding the process and meeting schedule to begin the review of the FY26 budget and joint meeting on March 25th, and participated in an interview with a BU student, Layla, regarding flooding in Marshfield and how the town notifies its residents. And that's my report.
Thank you. IT, can you turn up the microphones so the room can hear it better? Thank you. Do you want me to test? Can you hear me? Okay. All right. Thank you. All righty. So we are going to begin the public comments portion of our select board meeting. The time is 6:45, and this will proceed for 15 minutes. The first person that I have on the list is Jim Tracy. Is Jim here?
Yes.
Welcome. Introduce yourself, and the time is,
I get it. Yep,
Yours.
I'm notified 2 minutes, yep.
okay.
Hi,
ahead.
Jim Tracy, 51 Forge Lane. I'm here to talk about the supposed development that might be coming up at 89 Forge Lane. We were before the planning board about 8 years ago talking about the development. I can strongly say this is 10 times worse. We heard that there was several meetings with this developer, with the selectmen, and we would ask that those discussions be shared with us as to what was reviewed. Just a couple notes, since we only have 2 minutes. We think there's no connection or benefit to this potential 40B with the MBTA Communities Act that was talked about earlier. We think that the development is not really what the local needs are and is really not consistent with the goals of the master plan. There's potential groundwater issues. In our neighborhood, there's been groundwater issues for decades since it was developed. And the property is located in the Water Research Protection District as well. We have, over the last 48 hours, we have a petition that we'll share with you. We've got over 150 signatures. But the proposed development, which was 28 to 32 units, per the Institute of Transportation Engineering, would mean about 280 vehicles would be coming in and out of this one entrance of 89 Forge Lane onto Forge Lane. And just for reference, it's about 11 acres. It's 15 acres, but 4 of them plus or minus are wetlands. The whole street of Forge Lane, there's 26 houses. So it's more than double that on 30 acres is what it is right now. And this would be 28 to 32 units in 11 acres. This would, in one of the units, one of the houses on Forge Lane actually accesses from Pleasant Road. So we would have, using the same numbers, 250 cars coming out of 25 driveways.
10 seconds.
Oh, jeez. So it's not consistent with the master plan. We're already at the 10% threshold. A friendly 40B is not what this is.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. So do we have Kimberly Wilkinson here? Welcome. Are you all set, Kimberly?
I'm ready.
Excellent.
My name's Kimberly Wilkinson, owner of the property located at 91 Forge Lane. I strongly oppose the proposed development, 89 Forge Lane. Scope of the project is simply unreasonable given the amount of actual buildable land while taking into account the landscape of the existing established neighborhood. The construction of the access to the roadway of the site would cause 2 lots, 81 and 91, to violate the existing zoning bylaws and become non-conforming. Previous attempts to develop the site with 4 to 5 units have been deemed uneconomic. We believe it's both wrong and bad precedent for the town to effectively allow the taking of existing property compliant status and associated value to enrich a developer seeking to violate pre-existing regulations that go back to the original neighborhood development. Their safety concerns, which have yet to be addressed, the layout radii and line of sight issues that would be created by the access roadway onto Forge Lane, and the conceptual design is seriously deficient regarding fire hazard, medical, and emergency access. Additionally, roadway widths without sidewalks would run alongside existing driveways at a high slope, which someone is about to speak on the water issues that we have. We have a lot of water issues on Forge Lane. The plan doesn't address anything of that nature. We already experience significant icing from drainage overflow, and with the proposed design likely to exacerbate current and create new hazards.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next person here on my list is Kevin McGuire. Welcome.
Kevin McGuire, 111 Forge Lane. I've lived at that property for 35 years, so I've known my neighbors, and I've been seeing firsthand the problems with the water issues. There's, as for years, been water going through people's yards, coming from up above, and if we put 28 units up there, and you strip out the trees, and you remove the ground, the ground, it's just going to make it worse. Right now, on my property, since I moved in, every fall, every spring, when the snow melts and the ground unfreezes, water just comes pouring down the driveways. And even now, if you look at this past winter, just a week ago, with that heavy rain that we had, the DPW had to come down on Forge Lane to the bottom of it because the water was coming through everybody's property and it's iced up. They had to come down twice to sand it because it was so dangerous to go down the hill and people couldn't get up the hill. And that's just 2 weeks ago. Never mind what it's, what it's been going on for years. People's garages have been flooded. We have pictures of, people have pictures showing the water issues that come down. And with 28 units up there, and they strip everything off, they will probably come up with some civil engineer that's, we'll be able to fix that, and we'll be able to, rectify it. There's no way you're gonna rectify that, because there's wetlands up there, and those wetlands, when it rains up there, you could walk up, I walk up there, I had a dog, used to walk the dog up there. You would walk up there in the spring, and you would be, the
10
water
seconds.
would be over your ankles. And it just gets worse every year. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Susan Karen?
No comments, we're here to present.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just-
So Krista and Donna. How you guys? So you'll be talking to us later, is that what you're saying? Okay. So that concludes our portion of our public comment for this evening. Yes, ma'am. Oh, I apologize. I thought that you were with, okay. So Donna Green would also like to speak.
Yes, I don't have too much to say, but I'm at 575 Summer Street, the Magical Moon Farm, and I'm on the other side of that hill. We've had a horrible problem over the last few years since they clear-cut trees above me. That whole hill is all springs. That's what's not usually taken into consideration. It's clay and springs. And I've had over $100,000 worth of damage in my foundation, lost my furnace. Everything has been just washing away. Every storm is the same way. It's ice down on Summer Street. The water just pours down from every direction. I know Teresa Tallarico has the same issue, and many of my other neighbors do too. So that's my 2 cents. I do not feel like this is a really good idea.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So we extended it a little bit, but I appreciate everybody coming and giving their points. So we will, for a few of you, you may hear back from us as long as we have your emails correct on this public comment sign up. Everybody's done that, so we should be good with that. So I'm going to move on to our discussion for our meeting of our select board meeting.
Can I ask one question? Do I turn this in now, or do I need this in?
If you wouldn't mind, you can hand it to our administrator. Thank you.
Sorry.
And if you need a copy, you certainly, you made one? Okay, thank you, appreciate it. Okay. So the time is almost 6:55, and we are going to move into our board discussion. Our board discussion this evening is a discussion on the letter received from the Massachusetts Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, EOHLC. People use acronyms all the time, so I'm just letting you know what it is, regarding notification of noncompliance with Section 3A of the MBTA zoning act dated February 19th, 2025. I'm going to
The
read.
appointment.
Did I miss something?
Yeah, the appointment.
Oh, I apologize. Oh, I apologize. Let's skip back. And you talked, and then I'm sorry. Well, there's a lot more to that, as you can see in this very excellent report that we have. Is that correct? So why don't you come forward? Yes. Just a second.
Yes.
And we won't take it personally if you all want to go home. We won't be offended.
No. However, before you do so, because it's been a while since we've had such a number of folks here, love to see you all, but I'd like to just poll, how many of you that are here are in favor of the Forge Lane proposed project that you're seeing and you've heard of at this point? Would you raise your hands if you're in favor of this project? How many, so I see there are none. How many of you are opposed of the project as you understand it at this point for Forge Lane? Thank you. We're going to ask our town administrator to count you off. Opposed of it as you see it right now, or you understand it right now?
I get 37 opposed, no one in favor.
Okay, thank you. So I appreciate that, and appreciate you raising your hand like you're back in high school or whatever. Don't you wish it was that we were back in high school? Not really. So with that being said, if you'd like to leave, you can leave, but I'd love to have you stay and just listen, because there are some things that you may be interested in. But with that, and I apologize for that short little snip, and it's not to diminish how important your project is in your presentation. So, introduce yourself for the record, please.
All right. Can you hear all right from the, all right.
Can you put it in front of you
Sure.
a little bit, or closer to you?
All right.
There.
My name is Susan Karen. I'm the chair of the Open Space Committee, and I'm here tonight to introduce Krista Moravec, who is our consultant, our senior planner from Horsley and Witten, who has over 20 years of experience in writing these kinds of plans for multiple communities in Massachusetts. And she helped us develop this plan over the past year, and it's a lengthy plan. In total, it's, I think, 447 pages, so it's a lot to digest for anybody. So Krista has prepared a nice summary that will go over why we have a plan, what it means for us, and what's in the plan. So with that, I'll introduce Krista Moravec.
Thank you. And part of that number is some appendices, so the plan itself is not that long. Thank you. Next slide, please. So our objectives for our presentation, we're going to, as Susan said, just offer a brief overview of the Open Space and Recreation Plan, the draft plan, which includes an inventory of open space and recreational resources, a needs analysis, our goals and action plan. We'll answer questions, and our purpose is to ask for a letter of support from the from the Select Board. So the Division of Conservation Services at the state level, part of the submission requirements are to get letters of support from the Select Board, Planning Board, and then the Regional Planning Agency. So that would be the Metropolitan Area Planning Council for Marshfield. So we're here tonight to request that letter. Before I go on to the next slide, I just wanted to highlight the last plan was updated in 2018, and I just wanted to go over some of the accomplishments that the town has had since that time. So one of the actions was to create a plan to rehabilitate playgrounds and prioritizing those in the greatest need. So I think that has started. There's a plan, and they're addressing accessibility and safety concerns. The 2018 plan also highlighted the Coast Guard Hill property for recreational opportunities, a community garden, and some walking paths. So that is ongoing, and has been, some of those have been achieved. On the conservation side, 3 properties have been acquired for protection, totaling nearly 70 acres. There are conservation restrictions that were dedicated since 2018, on 2 properties, about 27 acres, and there are 2 additional conservation restrictions in progress right now, and those would total 88 acres. The Open Space Committee had received CPC funding, so the Community Preservation Committee had allocated funding for them and through town meeting to acquire a half an acre to expand the South River Park. And through a different source of funding, which is now ongoing, they're doing design, permitting, and construction to build an all-persons access trail, walking path, and it will have river views. So those are some of the things. So this is a plan that the town uses, and just wanted to highlight some of those for you all. Next slide, please. Just to define some terms, so open space and recreation. So open space, it can mean different things in different contexts. For this plan, we're talking about undeveloped land, both public and private, and it has some ecological functions. They're important natural resource function, cultural, recreational value. So those are lands that we highlight in this plan. Examples include forest, farmland, wetlands, floodplain. Next slide, please. I think recreational areas are a little more intuitive, so those are our outdoor facilities. This is an outdoor recreation plan, so our playgrounds, our parks, our athletic fields and courts, bikeways. Next slide, please. So why does the town have a plan? So really is to maintain the benefits of those resources. So we go through the planning process to understand where we are, where we want to be, and how we're going to get there. So going through this planning process, we can ensure that we're maintaining the benefits of those resources. They have economic benefits, environmental benefits, social benefits. This is a plan that the town can use to guide decisions around open space, natural resource, and recreational issues. And it supports the town as it acquires funding. The Division of Conservation Services requires that towns have an approved plan to be eligible for funding through that agency. So having an approved plan keeps the town able to apply for that. But I think it also is good for applying for other types of funding. It shows that this has been vetted with the public, and there is support for the action plan. Next slide, please. So DCS has 11 required sections, and I will not go through all of them. But key points are it provides a community snapshot, who lives in Marshfield, its infrastructure, water, wastewater, stormwater. It has environmental inventories. It inventories the open space and recreational resources. There's a needs analysis. It articulates a vision, your goals and objectives, and then there's a 7-year action plan. And these plans are approved for 7 years, so every 7 years you revisit it. So that's why 7 years. I will also note we did a ADA evaluation, also required for this plan, for properties under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission and the Recreation Department. Next slide, please. I'll touch on the inventory. So what do we look at? Obviously, town resources. So under the different departments and commissions, we inventory nonprofit land that's under the jurisdiction of the Commonwealth, but also under private ownership. Those are properties participating in the Chapter 61 program and conservation restrictions. Next slide, please. And this is a snapshot. It's tiny. But you can look at it in the plan and be able to zoom in, but that just gives you a geographic, how the distribution of the resources look geographically. Next slide, please. So when we did our needs analysis, we had some public engagement. So we did a survey in the fall of 2023. There was an open house in October of 2024. That was this past fall. We worked with the Open Space Committee. They are the stewards of this plan, so we worked closely with them, and we interviewed different town departments. And then the planning for open space and recreational resources, this is not the only plan that does that, so the town does a lot of other planning and actions related to that. So this is just a list of the different resources that we also incorporated to ensure that we are consistent and building on all the other efforts that you're doing. Next. So the needs analysis is divided into three categories. So natural resource protection is our first need. So some of the themes that we heard about building climate resiliency and protecting these resources to be more resilient, shoreline protection, coastal erosion, sedimentation, minimizing property damage and flooding, and maintaining man-made and natural features on the shoreline. The importance of protecting trees and the town's upland forests. The north and south rivers and their associated wetlands are also were a priority around needs, and making sure that one of the major needs associated with that was just balancing recreational uses with protecting those resources. And finally, aquifer protection, so minimizing pollutants and educating property owners about that. Next slide. Community needs. What we heard was the need for more walking and biking connections to improve and making those connections between resources and neighborhoods and improving safety. There's a high athletic field demand and increasing facilities for growing sports interests. In the conservation areas, just increasing awareness of these resources and finding opportunities for different users. Accessibility and inclusiveness, so thinking about folks with either who have disabilities and ensuring that there are opportunities for them at both conservation and recreational areas, and again, looking at the geographic distribution of those resources. Next slide, please. And finally, looking at the needs of the town to operate and manage these resources. So for conservation land, so building capacity to maintain those resources, a lot of volunteers help, and developing an inventory to understand what those maintenance needs are. For the recreation department, ensuring that they are able to build staff and capacity to meet demands, and having so land acquisition and protection, so ensuring that all the decision-making bodies understand the importance of protecting these resources, and continuing those partnerships with local nonprofits. Next slide, please. So the action plan, so to meet those needs, we have 5 goals. If you looked at the 2018 plan, we have a 5th goal that was added to our update. So I'm just going to walk through these briefly. Next slide, please. There are a lot of players that are involved in implementing this plan, and this is just a list. The select board isn't specifically identified as a responsible party to implement a specific action, but your support, as others do, implement it is. Next slide, please. So our first goal is about protecting the town's drinking water. So some of the actions related to that are acquiring and protecting land in its Zone 2, so that's the watershed protection district, educating businesses, homeowners, and residents about using environmentally friendly lawn care and garden projects, looking at land uses that occur in these areas, and encouraging development that minimizes impacts on the aquifer. Those are just some of the actions in that. Next, please. So expanding and connecting existing preserved land to enhance species and wildlife habitats and preserve vistas. So this is about prioritizing land that is most important. So areas that have sensitive environmental habitat, developing criteria that allows the town to prioritize what areas are most important, what lands are most important, continuing to educate the public about why these resources and their benefits, and then preparing for the impacts of sea level rise and that on habitat, on property, on town infrastructure. Next slide, please. This goal focuses on recreational opportunities, so using that ADA transition plan to make improvements. The town has a trails management plan, so continuing to move that forward. Using volunteers, as I mentioned, to build and manage areas, particularly around the rivers. The Council on Aging recently adopted their livable Marshfield, has a lot of connections with this plan when it comes to recreational opportunities for older residents, and again, improving playgrounds and prioritizing area for more community gardens. Next slide, please. This one is, goal 4 is about the collaboration among the town and community groups, so ensuring that, trying to make those connections, so actions are inviting representatives from the different conservation groups to speak before town departments and sorry, I read that one rather quickly. So invite representatives from the departments to work with conservation groups and provide updates. Continue to work collaboratively with your regional partners, such as the beach nourishment plan that you all are doing with Duxbury, working with students and finding opportunities to connect with them around environmental science and conservation, sustainable agriculture, and just continuing to publicize these resources and how to access them. Next slide, please. And our last goal, so this is about improving stewardship of the conservation land and areas that have high priority natural resources. So this is really about establishing, understanding the property management needs and building capacity of the town through its volunteers, its staff, and in committees to be able to do that. So outlining roles and responsibilities, documenting those environmental conditions, and do those more specific inventories, and then using that to understand what management needs are on a specific property basis. And really, and the importance of partnerships to move those actions forward. And with that, I will take a breath and open it up to questions.
Okay, thank you. So this report is really good. I'm just going to throw it out there. It's extensive, it's detailed, and it's unlike some of the other reports I've looked at because it's filled with data points. So opinions are one thing, hard data is a total other ball of wax, right? So what I want to start with is, so you understand, so we have, this is our presentation, what you just did here. We also have an action item. Action item number 1 is a discussion and vote to accept draft open space and recreation plan, just so everybody here understands that. So what I'd like to do right now is, I have a few questions on this, but if my board members would like to get into the questions right now, that's fine, or we can take a little bit of a breather. You have to sit down and we can get into the board discussion on our other items. I'm kind of leaning towards us just do this and you're sitting here and get it through and then get action 1 voted. That's how I feel, but I'm going to ask my board members. Is that all right with you? Mm-hmm. Is that all right with you?
Continue on with this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, just a second. You've asked for a letter of support and endorsement of the plan from the select board, and that's what I mentioned to you as action item number 1 for this evening. I have a few questions in regard to the actual, do you have it in front of you in your binder?
Yes.
So, page 5. Below the block area, it says to enhance the outreach methods discussed earlier to target the town's environmental justice neighborhoods. The OSC asked the Marshfield Housing Partnership. Can you change that, please, to to the Marshfield Housing Trust.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Marshfield Affordable Housing Trust. Okay, so that's one edit. And then page 9, we also had a question on the population under the year 2020 at 25,825. And then below it says in 2021, Marshfield's population was estimated to be 25,793. So can you just double check those numbers for us?
Right, so, yeah, so
What's your,
that's fair, yes. The 2020 is the decennial census.
oh, okay.
And using that, but the 2021 is the estimates that
Oh, I
they do
understand.
every year.
Okay.
But it is confusing, and maybe we just stick with the 2020 census, just because it's compared to the other.
Okay.
Can't mix apples and oranges.
I'm with you on that one. Page 22. I might need my glasses for this, but. So page 22, the last paragraph itself is talking about the MBTA communities.
Right, we wrote this.
And so that's the
We'll
point.
have
So
to
I just want
update
to,
it.
will that be, so was the deadline for this at a date prior to?
We submitted it to DCS to review as a draft, to let us know if there were any sort of red flags or anything like that.
Okay.
And that was done in October.
Okay,
November 20.
In November? Okay.
Right, and that met our deadline. So that's when we were due to have a draft in, so that we were in compliance, so that we could still apply for grants.
oh, I totally
So,
understand.
yeah, so a draft, all
But
you have
we
to do is have a first draft approved, and then we can take as long as we want to get the final,
Excellent.
we have a long time.
We can make this as general as need be, if that's, I mean, if we can update that piece.
Yeah.
So if there are general updates, I don't need to continue down this. I can make a note for all of these things that appear to be similar in nature to what I just asked. And then you can implement them or reply with a response to our administrator, and then it can get to myself.
Okay,
and
thank
board
you.
members. Does that make sense? So with that being said, I will suspend my questions, and I will provide those to you, and we will move forward to my other board members in asking those questions, their own questions as well.
Thank you
But
for
as
that.
I
That's why we're here,
said,
to take it.
as I said, this is very, I mean, it is very well-written, it's extensive, and it's just what we need to back up all these things that this town is working on, and there are a lot of things, as we all know. So, Steve?
Sure. Sue, I know we've talked about this before, but we have a fresh audience tonight, so I figured I'd bring it up again. Could you explain what the GLAM number is and its significance and how close we are to hitting that safe harbor threshold?
Okay, I'm probably not the best person to give you that exact number because it's changing. Do you want to address that? Or I can, the GLAM is the general land area mass minimum, right? General land area minimum that we need to meet to avoid hitting the 40B threshold where that's a mandate. So the last conversation I've had with, I keep in touch with Greg Drummond all the time about this. And I thought it was about 100, between 80 and 100 acres additional that we need. And to meet that need, we actually just got funding to help address that need, in addition to buying open space, which we try very hard, but we don't have control over everything that happens. We try and we don't. Sometimes we succeed and sometimes we don't. But the planning board came up with Karen Horn, the assistant town planner, had a project to identify properties for which there were no known owners. And so we were appropriated $50,000 at town meeting to do title searches for those properties. And if we couldn't take those if there are no owners that are identified. That it has to be documented with a title search first. And so that, we have over 300 acres of land where we have unknown owners. And so that project is set to begin. Actually, we've been working with town council, his office on that, and Karen Horn is coming up with the list. We're prioritizing. You can't do them all at once, so she's prioritizing from the list that we already have. So that project is about to begin. So that's the other way, that's, another way that we're trying to address this problem or issue.
Yeah, thank you. And then I figured it would be good to ask you this question, because you could fact check me if it's not correct, but is it accurate to say that one of the reasons the wetlands are so important and need to be protected is because they effectively function like the kidneys of the ecosystem?
They have been described that way. Yes, they have. Wetlands in general, they do perform a lot of benefits. They filter water, they are habitat. They absorb water from flooding, so they do have a lot of functions.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Can I add one to that?
Yeah.
Also, they've found that wetlands help sequester carbon. The large, undisturbed wetlands, upland forests, that's why we've added another goal for stewardship, because it's not just visual use, looking at it, it's now climate change has added the importance of protecting these lands because they sequester carbon. It's one of the easiest things we can do is just to leave it alone and let it function.
Perfect. Thank you.
Eric?
Thank you. On the Protect Marshfield's drinking water, and above it on the 7-year action plan, you say community and regional partners, Commonwealth, neighboring towns, et cetera. I look at, as you're speaking, and I'm reading this report, and then your little summary here, the whole thing is that, we're trying to do things that are right for the town, our water supply, ecosystem, and all of that. But then we have a state government that is demanding that we build out every square inch of this town. So we could vote to approve this, but my opinion at the state level, we'll just get thrown to a file cabinet. All right, well, we did it, but they're not going to pay attention to it. So, I mean, how are we going to protect our resources in this town if we have people at the state level, between those that hold the governorship office, your attorney general, and our state legislatures, that continue to implement laws on us that none of us like? And all we're trying to do is protect our community and resources. So could you explain a little bit on that in regards to doing this? And I just think that I think you guys did a great job on it. And I hate to say you wasted your time on it, but I would look at it that way, the way things are going.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying, and I understand that the paradox here, but the state can't stop us from using our CPC funds to buy land. And people in this town have been very supportive of us buying open space. The only challenge right now that we see on the Open Space Committee is that we won't have the benefit. We don't know exactly what grants are not going to be available to us yet, because we have received land grants and other park grants from the state, and I don't know if those will be affected or not. I don't know if they've made a list of the specific grants. So that's the only question for us and problem. We can still buy land and use with a town meeting vote, support of CPC, and that will continue the way it always has, and the state can't stop us from doing that.
I mean, but this.
If we get an agreement with a landowner, it's between the town and the landowner, we get funding from CPC, we get funding from town meeting, that's up to us. That's within our control.
But this report goes more deeper than just grants, funding, and open space. I mean, you guys cover a lot of details in this in regards to the whole operation of the town. I mean, if you look at number 1, protect Marshall's drinking water, I mean, at the end, it goes encourage development that minimizes impacts on the aquifer. I mean, it kind of goes, one cancels out the other, right?
Well, that's
Encourage development, but how are we going to protect the aquifer if you encourage development around it, right?
that's a zoning issue these are big goals that you don't achieve them all at once. This is a 7-year plan, and some of these goals, if you don't have them down, then you'll never reach them. It doesn't mean that we'll succeed at all of them, but it means that we work together with planning in terms of that. And that's really, the Open Space Committee isn't the principal committee to address all of these goals. We work together with all these departments. It's a town-wide, committee-wide, board-wide team that helps to meet the goals of the open space plan. And then in terms of water supply protection, we rank one of the ways that the goals of the Open Space Committee is to make sure all our land acquisitions protect what matters most, both from conservation, water supply protection, and benefit, maximum benefit to the community. We want to make sure that the taxpayers' money, it's limited, and that it goes to the biggest benefit. So every land acquisition that we do, we vet it completely against one set of metrics. So everything goes through the same ranking to determine priority. Water supply protection has always been, since the first open space plan was written when I was involved in 2004, drinking water supply has been the #1 goal. So that gets top priority for any acquisition we do. So that's what, all we can do to control that.
All right, so as you say that, then I'm not saying you're not being truthful about what you're saying, but what happened to the bridal trail, I guess, then?
I can't talk about land acquisitions anything that was done in the past. If there are things that could be done that were feasible, they would have been done for a lot of properties. We try to buy a lot of land and we don't succeed. We can't, landowners have rights and we can't force someone to sell to us. So that's my answer.
Actually, you can.
Actually, you can't.
Call eminent domain.
Well,
I do want to say for Lynn that it was a good catch in regards to the MBTA paragraph here. That was a good pickup by her. I do have
Eric.
questions on some of the stuff you've written here, if you don't mind. So I did go through this report pretty good, but not that good where I missed that part that Lynn picked up.
So do you intend on asking every point as I started, or can you do the same thing that I've informed them that I will do? Or do you,
I would rather do it here. Just
I
due
would
the
rather
fact that-
we move on because we have a lot of folks
Well,
and
if
a
that's
lot
what
of
you would
stuff.
like to do, Lynn.
So if you could, I mean, if you want to just go through a couple of them as I did as well.
There's more than a couple. I got 1, 2, 3. It's probably like a dozen items here.
Okay, so in regard to that, my list goes on to probably a dozen as well. So I think it's beneficial to you and to us to have the correspondence between your select board members and yourselves on this particular plan. And I'd appreciate doing that. But before we end this, because I want to just kind of reiterate the importance of what we're dealing with, and on your section 1 plan summary, I don't want to end on a sour note. So when we say there's a lot of stuff going on at the state, we all know there's a lot of stuff going on at the state. But we also know that the town has been working really hard since, and here it is, since the 1970s, Marshfield has been acquiring open space parcels, buffering public wells and within the aquifer recharge areas, lands under the ownership of public entities and nonprofit organizations totaling about 5,800 acres. That is not to be taken lightly, or roughly 27% of Marshfield. So when we talk about this not having an impact, this has an impact. We know there's an impact. We're walking the trails where we have our Ferry Street wells are good, even though they're actually the best we have, I believe, even though we have a potential 40B with 56 units going in. So I want to commend you for the work you're doing, and I want to continue to work hard on the aquifer. I use water to put into the bottles and shake it up with formula. I do. So, and I've lived here my whole life. So we, as a community, can't disparage how important it is to acquire the space. And I know that we can do better, and we can keep working at it. So with that being said, I'd like to move on to our action item number 1.
Right.
And take that approach that I talked about earlier.
Can I just add one thing?
Sure.
Lynn? Since 2004, when the Open Space Committee was first formed and we had our first plan, we've protected over 370 acres of land, just so you know.
370?
370 acres of land.
Thank you.
Spent over $8 million to do that since 2004.
All right.
All
thank-
CPC funding.
All right, thank you for that information. So we are going to move into our discussion item number 1, which is, will the select the select board will discuss I'm sorry, the board moves to ask, just a second. So much on our agenda this evening. Just a second. Action item number 1. Here we go. The board moves to accept and support the Town of Marshfield Open Space and Recreation Plan for 2024 through 2031, dated January 30th, 2025, prepared by Horsley Witten Group as presented, and adopt the amended changes as noted by the select board members for this open space recreational plan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and duly seconded. Roll call is in order. Ms. Fidler?
Aye,
Mr. Darcy?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
No.
Okay, vote passes 2-1.
thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay. So we are going to move into our board discussion. And this is a discussion on the letter received from the Massachusetts Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities regarding notification of noncompliance with Section 3A of the MBTA Zoning Act dated February 19th, 2025, and I will read that into the record. February 19th, 2025, issued by the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. Town Administrator Michael Maresco, Town of Marshfield, 870 Moraine Street, Marshfield, Mass. 02050. Re Marshfield, notification of noncompliance with Section 3A of the Zoning Act, Section 3A. Dear Town Administrator Maresco, I am writing to officially notify you that for the reasons explained below, the Town of Marshfield is noncompliant with Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 3A, the MBTA Communities Law. On January 8, 2025, the Supreme Judicial Court published its opinion in the case of Attorney General versus Town of Milton, confirming Section 3A is constitutional and valid, and that the Attorney General has the power to enforce it. The court also held that the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, EOHLC, must promulgate the laws implementing guidelines through the Administrative Procedures Act, if they are to be enforceable. In response, EOHLC filed emergency regulations with the Secretary of Commonwealth on January 14th, 2025, and plans to adopt permanent regulations after a public comment period. The regulations are filed as 760 CMR 72.00, multifamily zoning requirement for MBTA communities. They can be viewed at mass.gov/MBTA communities. The emergency regulations provided Marshfield an opportunity to come into interim compliance by submitting a new action plan by February 13th, 2025. EOHLC has not received an action plan from your town. Marshfield is therefore non-compliant with Section 3A. The consequences of noncompliance are significant. As Attorney General Andrea Campbell advised communities on March 15th, 2023, compliance with the MBT Communities Law is mandatory. All discretionary grant programs across Haley Driscoll administration take compliance with the MBTA Communities Law into consideration when making funding decisions. While we are disappointed that Marshfield has not submitted an action plan, we are hopeful that we can continue to work with the town to ensure that Marshfield can achieve compliance with the MBTA Communities Law. If you have questions or need further assistance regarding this determination, please contact MBTA Communities Compliance Coordinator Nathan Carlucci at nathan.carlucci@mass.gov. Sincerely, Edward M. Augustus, Jr., Secretary. Okay. So I've read that into the record, and I'd like to, our board members to understand that we also, this evening, added to our agenda the discussion and vote on the unfunded mandate determination by the state auditor as well. So we have that to talk about also. So in relationship to the first thing that I just read into the record, I spoke a little bit in the beginning in my chair comments about what this meant, how we got here, how this board voted 3-0 not to accept the action plan that was presented to us a couple weeks ago, and therefore we're in non-compliance. But I want you to both understand that we are in non-compliance. It is what it is. The town meeting, that was the decision from the town meeting. But we need to make sure that this town has some plan in place as we move forward and try to figure all of this out. So the goal going forward is to have a plan. I'm really fiscally conservative, so this is so important to the town because we need to understand exactly what is at stake. And when I read this and it said all discretionary grants, I was like, holy smokes, all discretionary grants. That puts our schools, that puts Chapter 70 funding, 15+ million, couple million in our, I have the numbers here on my binder, couple millions in the government side, for the town. So I was thinking, we're not just talking about 17 grants now, which is where our heads were back in December. We're talking about really big numbers. I think I said at town meeting floor, it was going to be like 5 million, give or take, on the quick answer to what we were going to be dealing with. So in relationship to all of that, I think that having, because I'm going to just bridge into what we're looking at in the results from the state auditor and the letter from Methuen. So that gives us, so when we're looking at an unfunded mandate, and we have town council here to kind of get ourselves on track if we need help. But so the unfunded mandate allows us a few options, which we weren't sure about before because Methuen, and I believe there was another town as well, that was in the process of trying to determine what unfunded mandate, if these towns that are forced to comply are going to be able to meet that requirement so that they could get the expenses like sidewalks, potential sewerage, all those types of things that cost money to a municipality when you have an MBTA system coming in with this act that will affect the bottom line and how we budget our town. So having this unfunded mandate is potentially something that we were waiting to see what would happen, and now we know that at least in Methuen that they have this determination. So I just talked a lot, but that was, and I have more to say, but in light of where we are right now, I read it in, I didn't read in the letter from Methuen, from the state auditor, but we can make that available to people, and it's certainly online. So what do you think, Steve, where we're heading down a road and we can't, Eric will say, tell him to pound sand, but I think if we ostrich ourselves and put our heads in the sand, we're not doing justice to the town, and we need to understand what we're dealing with, or at least some really good numbers on what we're looking at, and I just want to hear what you have to say. So.
Sure, yeah. It's an unpopular piece of legislation. It wasn't a standalone bill. It got slipped into a COVID relief bill to make it as difficult as possible for state reps and state senators to vote no. Because it's at the height of the pandemic, and small business owners were putting their rent on their credit card. So it's not like it was a standalone bill that everyone rallied behind, and it's very popular. It's deeply unpopular. It wasn't the popular answer, right? But this is exactly what we were worried about, all the grant funding that we would lose.
Right.
So just because it's not popular, it doesn't mean it's a scare tactic. This is what's happening. So what we were worried about has borne fruit with this. So that's our tax dollars that aren't coming back to town. We lost a grant to dredge the North and South River, and that money's going to have to come from somewhere. We're going to have to find it. So it's unfortunate, but the state Supreme Court said that the law is constitutional. So we're in a really tough spot if we continue to stay out of compliance. So, right, it's like, do you want to be a passenger on the bus or off the bus? And try to mitigate that act as best you can. So it's an unfortunate situation to be in, but all the grant funding that we're going to lose is definitely going to be an issue for our budget, and it's going to be tough to tackle important projects in our town. So those are my thoughts on that. And then with respect to the state auditor's ruling, so I spoke to her earlier today.
Oh, okay.
And she wanted to convey to everyone that her office is accessible and available to anyone who has questions about her ruling. And what she did was, she didn't nullify the law. What she said was it's an unfunded mandate, and that the state should provide funding for the costs incurred by towns to get into compliance with this act. So the Attorney General is already gearing up to litigate that matter as well, so we'll see what happens there. But basically, her ruling, plain and simple, was, this mandate is causing these cities and towns to incur some large costs, and the state should provide funding for that. And so that's her ruling. We'll see where it goes in the court system, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
So before I head over and let Eric have the microphone, I just want to make sure that people know that there are some towns that kick the can, right? They got an action plan, they're kicking the can, and they're going to do what they can till that extension period runs out. We voted 3-0 not to kick the can because we already knew exactly what the action plan was and that our town wasn't in favor at a town meeting. But we also now need to allow the town to have recourse. We have to plan ahead. We have to get our ducks in a row and understand how we're going to do that to the best of our ability. So we need to preserve our rights as we see it going forward, and get the state grants that we have on the line right now. We have 261,000 plus that's on hold right now. We had I believe it was Mike DeMeo, our harbor master, was in town. He received the check, and we were pretty much told not to cash it. So this is an area of town out in our harbor that needs navigation. It's a safety concern for our town. That's just an example of what we're dealing with, and we've got a lot more on the plate other than that, but that's a real hard number right now as we're moving forward. So if we have a couple of motions here in front of us tonight that hopefully will allow us the options to have some recourse and to plan out a little bit and let the public know. And since I happen to talk about recourse and we happen to have our town council here, I want him to just weigh in on what that means as we go forward into the next couple of weeks and potentially the next couple of months to year, whatever we're dealing with. So Bob, can you just briefly talk about what I just talked about, and then I'm sure Eric is going to have a lot to say.
Sure. First of all, we began last week with the suspension letter from the Housing and Livable Communities. And what I didn't notice was the mention of the 17 grant programs in the statute. And what I paid particular attention to was the loss of all other discretionary funds. And that's how I interpreted it. It says that in that letter that the Healy administration takes into account all other discretionary grant programs and our compliance with the MBTA communities law. So that I think that sounds to me like a lot like many of the other grant programs that weren't set forth in the statute. I doubt that's going to be public education or Chapter 90 funds, but there are a number of other grant programs other than the 17 enumerated in the statute that we're never going to get to be a finalist on anymore, if they have any say in it. So I can't tell you what the consequence is because I don't know what we might apply for in the future or what specifically they'll try to take away from us. I think it was kind of a nice sign that when our fire chief and our town spoke up regarding some funding that was threatened that equips and places our firefighters in appropriate uniforms, the state administration did not take that funding away from us. I I didn't think it was eligible to be taken away to begin with because it wasn't part of one of those state programs. But again, that's potentially a very significant number for us. So that's how I looked at that letter. And then I think at the end of the week, I think we got some better news from a different division of the state auditors. I was aware that Methuen, Middleborough, and Rentham had applied for a unfunded mandate determination, had seen their requests, even watched some of their discussions in front of their local select boards about why they were asking for it and what they felt the financial impact in the community was. And I shared some of those thoughts with Mr. Maresco before the last town meeting even. But there hadn't been any determination that any of the communities in Massachusetts were subject to an unfunded mandate. And just so you know, that is Chapter 29, Section 27C is called the Unfunded Mandate Law. And if the state auditor determines that a state law or regulation creates a financial burden on the town with some direct impacts, the state auditor can rule that they're an unfunded mandate, and that doesn't invalidate the law, but it gives us some options. And I summarized for you all over the weekend my recommendations, and that would be that you forthwith meet with our state representative and senator and ask them to submit specific legislation concerning Marshfield, asking them to provide either funding for us or to exempt Marshfield from compliance with the MBTA Communities Act. I mentioned in my memo to you all that we also now have the option of seeking a court order to exempt us from complying with that law until adequate funding is provided. And using these unfunded mandate determinations from Methuen, Middleborough, and Rentham. And I think we can also join that request if we want. Typically, that request takes 60 days for them to respond to. It wouldn't be a huge effort on our part now to ask for that specific determination on Marshfield, but I'm not sure it's even important to do that in light of the scope and breadth of the unfunded mandate determinations that I've read for Methuen, Middleborough, and Rentham. So I believe that I will be recommending that you also consider bringing a claim that the town of Marshfield should be exempted under the unfunded mandate law. I did see the statement from the Attorney General's office today. They feel that the auditor's decision was wrong. I expect that they'll probably challenge that determination in some form. I don't know where or how, and that's not something they'll be discussing with us, but I expect that they're in disagreement with the state auditor's opinion on this and will challenge that in some way, shape, or form. I think it throws into chaos the entire MBTA Communities Act. I think you might see towns that are in interim compliance now follow what Marshfield and other communities have done, and I think there's 6 communities that are not in compliance right now, and they may not adopt this. You might even see a town that's even passed it seek to petition in a Superior Court action for an exemption until funding is provided. You might see 10 taxpayers in our community or in other communities bring lawsuit, essentially seeking what I'm recommending that we consider too, is that a lawsuit that we're exempted until they provide us funding. Again, none of those provisions challenge the legality of the act. It simply challenges whether it can be implemented against us until they provide us funding. And I think Mr. Gieman's presentation at town meeting acknowledged that there'd be funding if we were obligated to, there'd be funding gaps for us if we were obligated to comply with that. So we don't have a lot of work to do to substantiate the fact that the town of Marshfield is going to incur costs and expenses. So my recommended actions to you tonight were to ask our state reps and senators to file those alternative legislative bills on our behalf, and then when and if you're ready to authorize us to begin the process of preparing an action against the Commonwealth seeking to exempt us through a petition in the Superior Court.
Okay, thank you. So this evening, we have some options ahead of us. I have my motions here. The board members up here have them in front of them. So if we were to move forward and ask the state auditor for a determination on whether or not we're non-funded or not, will that preserve our ability to get grants and give us some sort of a
No.
frame? No, that won't. Will the other option, are any of these options on, are we just,
The law is valid and enforceable unless we can convince the state legislature to exempt us through our legislators,
okay,
or we succeed in a claim in the Superior Court that we're exempt until they provide us funding.
okay. So nothing has changed based on what we were understanding back in December, and it's playing out. So before you start, which I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say, this select board is not reversing our decision. I want to make that clear. Our decision is to stand up and honor what our residents voted on December 16th. So we are going to figure that out as we go.
Lynn, can I ask Bob one question?
Yes.
Sorry, Eric. Bob, not being in compliance, could you talk about, maybe the word is too strong, the risk we're at with a developer coming into town and picking anywhere they'd like to go? It's great that we're in safe harbor with a Chapter 40B because we're at 10.3%, but can you talk about the risk that we face not being in compliance?
Sure. Prior to town meeting and at town meeting, I kind of mentioned this possibility, and I've been worried about it from the beginning. There's a remedy that's not been utilized yet in Massachusetts, been utilized in another state, where a community was obligated to comply with a law, did not, and what is called the builder's remedy was exercised. And it's not something that I like to think will happen here, but I can't exclude the possibility that will not. A developer could pick out a parcel of land or parcels of developed land, assemble them, and then propose a project claiming that they can do that by right, because state law requires us to have a district that is compliant with the MBTA Communities Act, and we don't. And demand, particularly if it's an area that's got water or sewer, where we have water and sewer capacity, permits by right. It becomes a little bit more difficult in a water resource protection district or where there's private septic, because a parcel of land can only accept so much subsurface sewage quantity without violating state laws and our other local laws that are designed to protect our water resources. But that doesn't mean someone won't try. There's always the possibility that a developer could propose what they call a wastewater treatment facility, which is privately constructed on a parcel of land. They're very difficult to permit. They take years to permit. They cost millions of dollars. There are 2 wastewater treatment facilities on the 240B projects in the industrial park. The first one is constructed and operational. The second one is being constructed and was permitted. But my understanding is that these are now taking between 3 and 4 years to permit. So I like to think that our failure to have sewer in parts of town somewhat acts as a protection for us in a good percentage of the town. But it may not be a defense to us in a portion of the town where we have sewer and sewer capacity. So if people could assemble enough land or acquire a parcel of land where they can get public water and sewer, someone could potentially come in and propose a development and propose something much larger, much taller, much more dense than anything around it, and demand a permit. I expect our building commissioner would deny that permit. I would think that our zoning board of appeals would probably uphold that denial, and then there'd be a lawsuit, and the lawsuit would be seeking a determination that they can permit this as of right, and our local laws cannot be interpreted to preclude it. That's called the builder's remedy from the Mount Laurel case in New Jersey.
Okay, thank you. Eric?
Well, here's my look at it. The law 3A, letter B states that the community chooses not to accept it, that they lose 3 funding grants. This law is supposed to be voted on the citizens at town meeting. The law was. The law was defeated. So we are in compliance. I see it no other way, in my opinion. All these threats, all they are is threats. They want to take action, go ahead. You know something? There's an election coming up in 2026. It's not that far away. My look at it is, you know something? There could be some hard times, but I'm willing to make tough decisions for that period until we unseat the person in the corner office, the Attorney General, and probably a good portion of the legislature that allowed this to go through, as well as the recent economic development bill that also added pressure to communities like us. So my look at it is I'm hoping that there are going to be people that stand up, challenge a lot of these people in the legislature, as well as the people in the corner office of the state, as well as the Attorney General, because they don't represent the citizens of our communities. They represent big money, developers, obviously. And it's time that we put our foot down and remove them all come 2026. You know, all these comments about taking grants away and putting fear into you. It's how many times have we seen that, especially during COVID, putting the fear into everybody, find out that there was easy remedies for it, and we'd have to go through the things that we had to for the last couple of years, especially our children. So I think 2026 is going to be a big year for all of us in the state, and I hope everybody here exercises that right to vote and removes everybody that needs to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So I am going to move forward with the options that we have in front of us today. So we have 3 options, and I'm going to ask for the votes independently for each of these. So the first of these options is whether or not this board moves to ask the state auditor for a determination of an unfunded mandate for the town of Marshfield through our town council. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion been made and duly second. A roll call is in order. Ms. Fidler?
Aye.
Mr. Darcy?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Hold on. Can you get some clear? What are we voting on here right now?
So you see your options?
Are we talking about this from the state auditor?
Do you have your option, your motions?
Yes.
Okay, so you're looking at, we have a board discussion, and these are the options that are available to
All
our
right,
board.
no, I get that. So we're
Okay.
talking about, all right, weren't we just discussing the unfunded mandate determination by the state?
I told you in the beginning that we were going to discuss both of these options together. So I addressed the letter that we had received from the EOHLC, and then I addressed the unfunded mandate information from Methuen, and then I continued to talk about questions whether or not our rights will be preserved on the state grants and allowing us to have recourse. And I said the select board is not reversing our decision that we made a couple of weeks ago on the action plan. And then that's just I think I talked for quite a long time, so that's just, sometimes the mouth goes and I don't have it written down, but, and then Steve added in on both of those items as well. And that's where we are, so we are on
So what
to.
are we voting on? Because all I
So-
see here is a
so-
board discussion, and then if you're gonna go the route that you did, I see an option here. So the
So-
board moves to ask the state auditor for determination on the unfunded mandate for the town of Marshfield.
Yes,
So I mean, determination like they did with Methuen?
yes.
Yeah, I guess we want to vote on that.
Okay.
I guess.
Okay. So do I have a second?
Second?
Motion been made and duly seconded. Roll call is in order. Ms. Fidler?
Aye.
Mr. Darcy?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
No.
Okay, my motion carries 2-1.
Okay. So the other option that we have available to us is whether or not the board moves to ask our state senator and state representatives to seek state funding for communities to implement the requirements of the law or regulation, or to make compliance with the requirement optional for local governments. I'm going to ask for a second.
Can I make a suggestion? That
Yes, please.
we ask for it to exempt Marshfield. The legislation would be to exempt our town,
To seek,
not just all local communities, just,
oh,
For Marshfield.
for
Head of local
Marshfield.
government.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask for a second, and then we can deliberate on this as well if we need to be. Do I have a second? The board moves to ask our state senator and state representatives to seek state funding for communities to implement the requirements of the law or regulation, or to make compliance with the requirement optional for the town of Marshfield. Do I have a second?
Second?
Motion made and duly second. Roll call is in order. Ms. Fidler?
Prior to us going to a vote, I want to just share with this board that I had a meeting this afternoon with our Representative Ken Sweezy, the Senator Patrick O'Connor, and the aide for our Representative Kearney. He was out of state and actually overseas, but I was meeting with Ken Sweezy just to have a discussion and a follow-up, and then all this stuff we had come to light this weekend. So I'd asked Michael to reach out whether or not they would be available as well. So the purpose for that meeting was to give us an update on what they're hearing on the state side, and I shared with them the agenda for this evening. I said I wasn't sure what direction we would be going, and that we had some motions on the table. So this would be in relationship to number 2, which is what I just read in and asked for a second. So I just wanted to disclose that with you, that they are aware that this was on the agenda this evening. And if you have any questions or comments with that, I just wanted to share questions or comments with that. And then I'll ask, okay. So I'd like to ask a second again on that, and ask our town administrator to follow through on this request for this motion. I have a second.
Second?
Motion been made and duly seconded. Roll call is in order. Ms. Fidler?
Aye.
Mr. Darcy?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Nay.
Motion carries 2-1.
Okay. And the other option that we have available to us is number 3, and this is the board would seek a court order exempting the town of Marshfield from compliance with the law until adequate funding is provided by state government using the mandate determination, as I described before in that first motion, as evidence in the case. Do I have a second?
Second?
Motion been made and duly seconded. Roll call is in order. Ms. Fidler?
Aye.
Mr. Darcy?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Nay.
Motion carries 2-1.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. All right, so we are moving into our action items number 2. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. Sometimes it doesn't work as I expect. I can hear myself, but, okay. So, number 2 is a discussion and vote to accept local initiative project policy for Marshfield, which is an LIPP. opposed to an LIP. So acronyms always get us going, but I'd like to share why I have introduced this particular local initiative project policy. So it did come to my attention how important it is going forward with the fact that we are in safe harbors on our 40Bs. And it also came to my attention recently that we need to have some safeguards in place so that our select board and our members of the public are aware of what's going on here when people are approaching us. And as I said before, I mean, I've been at the deli line, wherever I am, there are people asking me questions. So the purpose of this particular policy is to allow transparency here in the town of Marshfield as we move into kind of this uncharted land of being in safe harbor for a couple of years, so that we know that a 40B, whether it's friendly or not, has some parameters and things that we need to be in tune with. And so that's the purpose of this. It was introduced a couple of weeks ago. My board members were given an opportunity to respond in any editorial fashion that they wished to, and I believe that wasn't taken advantage of. But I did make a couple of editorial comments to this project policy, which happens to be two pages and then a little bit more. I feel like I should read this into the record. What do you think?
No.
No. What do you think?
Is it your own personal highlights?
Well, they're just, maybe where you already saw this 2 weeks ago, I'm going to just tell you what has been changed in the version that you have in front of you. Very minor. So on paragraph 1, it is now corrected to read as EOHLC, okay, on the third line. That was
a correction from.
That was the
spoke about 2
correction
weeks
from
ago.
me that I corrected and submitted to Michael prior to the date that it was requested. Also, we have on the line 4, the trustee of the Affordable Housing Trust, trustees of the Affordable Housing Trust, it was partnership. Okay, simple change. On number 3, bullet item number 2, there was a parentheses in front of include. It was just there for some bizarre reason. I got rid of that parentheses.
Where was that again?
Second bullet, the address of the proposed site and site description to include wetlands.
Oh.
There was a parentheses, so that has been removed and edited out. I'm going to just read this because there are still some people here that are from our previous public comment portion. So number 4, the project should offer clear benefits to the community above a conventional or unfriendly Chapter 40B development. In order to be considered as a LIP project, certain benefits are necessary, while others are beneficial but not all required. So this is really kind of setting the stage for the planning board to do their due diligence, get their public comments and figure it all out, and then provide the select board with a recommendation. And then in turn, the recommendation from the select board would be in a form of a report. During all of this happening, the zoning board of appeals is kind of way over here because they're the enforcement agency and the ones that will be taking the comprehensive permit forward. And this is similar to other proposals that we have and policies that we have in town. But it gives the ZBA separation, but gives the planning board the ability to do what they need to do, to have a public comment portion, to expect that the developer, and there could be multiple proposals for a specific area, they do all their due diligence and then provide that to the select board, and then the select board in turn will provide a report. I recall the select board, when I first started, did one for the 40B where we thought that the 12 acres and the density was way out of line for what this town needed. And I believe we signed off and provided the ZBA with a report. So that's what this is about. And other than that, there were no other changes to this based on the original one you saw a couple weeks ago. So that's where this is coming from. Any questions or comments?
Yes, it's just nice to be back in the driver's seat now that we hit our
Yes.
10.3% threshold and
Yeah.
we're in safe harbor. Just had one question for Bob, if you wanted to just, briefly summarize the policy and the intent of it.
Sure. I guess this is a good problem to have.
Yeah,
It
For-
certainly is.
definitely.
For as many years as I've been involved in town government, whether I was representing somebody before the town, before I came town council, or as town council, we've never been over 10%. So a policy like this really wasn't on the table, although it could always have been. But now that we're over 10%, we are in the driver's seat, and we can decide whether we want to accept any other 40B project, as long as we maintain over 10%, or unless we reach another type of threshold, that general land area minimum requirement that you heard Susan Karen speaking about before. We're close on that, but we're not there yet. So what a developer is likely to do now, and maybe even more likely that the MBTA Communities Act is in a state of flux as a result of that determination last week, is a developer is likely to approach you all as the select board and ask you to consider endorsing their project. And they'll try to convince you that there's some significant public benefit such that we should not invoke that safe harbor provision and allow another 40B. And, the residents that were here for Forge Lane today are probably thinking about this issue, because it's not a secret that someone has proffered some plans to develop that site and would need a local initiative project determination by your board to submit it there if they were going to do it as a 40B project. So I thought it was particularly timely to have this type of a policy in place, giving your board, the public, and the developer clear guidance under which, so that people would know where you might think it was appropriate for this type of a policy, where you're basically streamlining a 40B project when you don't have to. And it all comes down to the significant public benefits. And unless a project was to propose such significant public benefits that they so greatly outweighed the adverse impacts, I wouldn't be recommending it, but your board shouldn't even consider it. So this policy creates a process by which a developer could approach the town in a very public way with some specific plans. It gives us a mechanism to have it evaluated by our planning department, which are our land use professionals, as to whether a site might be appropriate for this type of a determination, evaluate the significant public benefits that we would expect them to offer if they're going to ask us to waive the safe harbor, and provide a mechanism for you all to discuss it publicly and make a decision in a very open and obvious way, allowing people to give some public input before you make a decision. I think all of those processes are critically important so that everybody knows when you're making that type of decision what it took in order to get it done, and that there were no backroom deals being made, and what was at stake and why it was important. And I'll tell you, I was at the Norwell Board of Selectmen meeting recently, and then last week I was at a zoning board of appeals meeting, and the select board had endorsed a LIP project. Now, Norwell isn't over its 10%, but this was a project that provided some significant public benefits. On Route 53 in Norwell, which is also known as Washington Street, not too far away from St. Helens Church, there were a few houses that had fallen significantly into disrepair, and a developer offered to take those down. He owned them. He offered to build a mixed-use project with 8,000 square feet of commercial space on the first floor and 8 single-bedroom units on the second floor 2 of which would be affordable to someone earning 80% of the area median income. Norwell, like Marshfield, doesn't have enough housing, particularly one-bedroom units, for people that are going through various stages of their life, whether it's a first time or, they're, suffering some type of a domestic separation, or maybe they're getting older. There's just not enough single-bedroom units. So this developer was taking down some eyesores, coming up with a commercial use on the first floor, coming up with 8 apartments that were greatly needed in Norwell, and the select board thought that was a significant enough public benefit to endorse that project, which in their case will streamline the process with the Zoning Board of Appeals. Okay? And the Zoning Board of Appeals looked pretty favorably on it. It might have advanced quicker, except their engineer had left and they were in the process of obtaining a new engineer, but that was a local initiative project. Duxbury had a local initiative project that was offered by its Community Housing Trust in partnership with the Habitat for Humanity on I think it was a 6-acre parcel next to the highway. And that project involved all affordable housing. Some was affordable, super affordable, someone earning 30% or less of the area median income. Other units, maybe 2 more units, 60% of the area median income. Those are low-income units, and then the last 2, I think, were low and moderate income, or someone earning 80%, or a household with 80%. And they submitted that as a local initiative project. It was a great site next to the highway that wasn't really desirable for much conventional development. They allowed more units than would otherwise fit on the lot, and everyone seemed to be supportive of it in Duxbury. So that was a Community Housing Trust, or Duxbury's Affordable Housing Trust project in partnership with Habitat for Humanity. Again, significant public benefits. I haven't seen one in Marshfield that would appear like that yet. One of the significant public benefits you sometimes see offered is, instead of offering 25% of the units as affordable, they go to 35 or 40%. Sometimes they design it in a way that has no public benefit, or they go really above board with how they're mitigating the impact of the project. All of those things, I left it in a very general way, because really it's up to your board to decide whether they're doing something that's so significant that they deserve this endorsement by your board. So I thought it's a really important time to do this now. Makes it crystal clear that they have to overwhelm you and overwhelm the town and defeat the adverse impacts of these projects, which you heard some about tonight from Forge Lane.
Thank you.
Thank you for helping me with this too, Bob. Any questions or
Yeah.
comments?
In the number 4, the project should offer clear benefits to the community above a conventional Chapter 40B development. In order to be considered as a LIP project, certain benefits are necessary, while other beneficial, but not all required. Required beneficial include innovative site design, percentage of affordable units in excess of mandatory 25%, building density that does not maximize development of the site. And then there's other benefits. Other benefits include, but not limited to, location, which is in harmony with the needs of the community, architecture, which blends in with the complements of the immediate neighborhood, provisions for enhancements to the site, the surrounding neighborhood, landscaping, drainage, etc. Ability to meet other town housing needs, such as senior housing, workforce housing, rental housing, and energy-efficient design and construction. And then it has financial contribution from the sale of market rate units to the Marshfield Affordable Housing Trust or other organization identified by the Select Board. So with number 4, we're not, the Select Board isn't going to be beholden to this, right? This is just mere suggestions.
Those are examples, not a exclusive list of benefits. You're right. You could come up with other things that might be, in your view, a significant public benefit.
Yeah, so it's just suggestions to us,
Mere
to
suggestions.
everybody that's involved in this.
I said the the first three are required, but the rest of them are the suggestions. But again, if you want to endorse it and they come up with something that overwhelms you, that's okay too, if it's not on this list.
So what you're saying is we're not beholden to this, it's just a
Correct.
guideline, right?
Guidelines only.
Okay. And then a financial contribution from the sale of market rate units to the Marshfield Affordable Housing Trust or other organization identified by the select board. So I've heard about this, so is this the financial contribution, is this the sidestep putting in affordable units, or is this gonna be with the affordable units, but whatever market rate units they sell, they have to donate money
The
to?
way I envision it, Mr. Kelly, would be in addition to their requirement to build 25%, they would have to make a contribution from the sale of their market rate units to allow us to basically construct affordable housing somewhere else where we might choose. And that could be by the Affordable Housing Trust, it could be by the Housing Authority, it could be by Habitat for Humanity. I mean, one of the things we did when we built the veterans housing in the Ventress building, we gave them a financial incentive to make that project go by. We gave them not only did we give them the land, but we gave them approximately $500,000 so that that project became a viable project. And we could take money from the market rate units in a development that's proposed to get a LIP endorsement and use that to help fund something like that.
All right, so,
They're not buying their way out of putting it on that site. They're expected to contribute more than what's minimally required.
all right, I mean, like I said, it's only a guide, we're not.
Correct.
beholden to it, so,
Yep.
but I just want to make sure in regards to the language in there. Number 6, the zoning board of appeals shall be excluded from this process in order to preclude any potential issues of prejudice or bias should the project result in the application for a comprehensive permit. Can we explain that further?
Sure. The quasi-judicial board that we have in town that decides whether a comprehensive permit issues is our zoning board of appeals. I don't think any member of the zoning board of appeals should participate in this evaluative process or the decision to grant a LIP endorsement, because their job is to decide whether it qualifies for a permit, and I don't want them to be influenced in any way, shape, or form by what your board does or what they hear from some other source. They should decide it on its merits and on its merits alone.
So is the ZBA completely eliminated from this process?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
they are.
In regards to that, what you spoke of, number 8 at the bottom, this information shall also be included in the comprehensive permit application to the zoning board of appeals.
Yes. So once you've made your decision on a LIP endorsement, they get your decision and the conditions along with their application for the comprehensive permit. The zoning board would know that this project is a LIP project because the selectmen endorsed it and know the reasons why.
But, do you mind if
Go
I?
ahead, go for it, Lynn. Maybe.
So when the zoning, just disclosure, I used to be on the zoning board, I was the chair, but, so when the zoning board of appeals receives that endorsement from the select board, in the report, that's the application for the comprehensive
Yeah,
permit.
they file an application just like they would normally do.
Yeah,
And then included in the application would be the select board's LIP endorsement if you're giving one.
if you're giving one,
Correct.
okay. And that should be enough for them
Yes.
to at
Ju-
least start, but they're not gonna rely, but that's up to them, it's up to their discretion whether or not they're going to take what the select board had to say.
They can still say no and deny a comprehensive
Yes, that's what
permit.
I just want to, okay.
So
that's what I
the other
wanted to
thing,
be
just
clear on.
to know, someone could still file for a 40B even though we're over the threshold. This happened over in Pembroke a number of years ago. Off of Oak Street, which is where the Dunkin' Donuts is, and there's the Wolves Den and things like that, a developer over there, and I forgot the name of it might have been Trammell Crow, even though Pembroke was over their threshold, the temporary over their threshold, they came in with another 100-unit project, and they said, even though there wasn't a LIP endorsement, they went to the zoning board of appeals and said, please give us this permit, and if you approve this, and it's all apartments, you'll be that further ahead. And they basically gave the town the choice to approve that or not. And
Okay.
I don't remember what they did on that one, but that may have been approved.
Okay, thank you.
Hold on, I still
You all
gotta get that clarified. So the information shall also be included in the comprehensive permit application to the zoning board of appeals. So we got number 6 that says the zoning board of appeals shall be excluded, but then number 8 says the information shall also be included with the comprehensive permit application to the zoning board of appeals. So one, the zoning board is supposed to be excluded, and then we have another one that invites them, but it seems like, so I am confused on this, so.
So let me explain it. There's a process that takes place before the select board. That process has to complete without any involvement from the zoning board of appeals. Once your process complete and they apply to the zoning board of appeals, the zoning board of appeals then knows what your board's decision was. They need to know whether this was endorsed by you or not.
All right, so.
But they don't participate in the interactive process by which a lip endorsement is gained or denied.
So let me ask you this much. Since the zoning board of appeals is still gonna be involved in this process, and when we're done with that decision,
Yep.
does that mean they can modify it?
No. They can deny the comprehensive permit, or they can approve it with conditions.
Yes, they can put conditions on it.
They have the absolute right to put whatever conditions they want on it, too.
Oh. All right, that's all I have.
Okay, all right. So moving forward, the board moves to approve the local initiative project policy, LIPP, for Marshfield as discussed and presented this evening with an effective date of February 24th, 2025. The intent of this policy is to offer clear benefits to the community above a conventional or unfriendly Chapter 40B development. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion been made and duly seconded. Roll call is in order. Ms. Fidler?
Aye.
Mr. Darcy?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Madam Chair, could we take number 6 out of order?
Is Ned here?
Yeah. Love it. He was
I saw
earlier.
him leave. I
He
saw him
left,
leave.
yeah.
Yes, I would be happy to take number 6, which is an appointment for the Community Preservation Committee. Do you want to come on up, Brent? Since you're here, and you sat through. No, you didn't need to, just come, sit up here, sit up here. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Thank you for sharing the night with us.
Cleared out the room.
I hope you learned something. Don't take it personal.
I won't. Happens all the time.
Okay, all right. So this is an appointment for the CPC, and I had the pleasure of getting a visit from Brent. Came in and we talked for probably a half an hour about all different things in the town and all of your impressive resume. Talked about his work towards his doctorate, and that got a little, well, you got a little bit, you haven't finished it. But if you look at his resume, you'll see exactly what this gentleman brings to the table. So you heard about the open space, and so I'm just going to chat like we were chatting in the office. So you talked about a couple of things that you feel you have a really good skill set for. So when you talk about CPC, you're talking about affordable housing, recreational fields, open space. Can you just share with this board, because they didn't have the pleasure of getting to meet you and talk about that?
Yeah. I was a consultant for 15 years, mostly ports, harbors, development, power plant, renewables, kind of across the gamut from all project phases, from, early planning, permitting, construction, O&M, the whole. And so we'd hold those contracts and work with consultants, a lot of which the town of Marshfield works with quite often. But just understanding of what it takes to actually execute a project, what that budget should look like, where the loopholes when managing that contract. And just, beyond that skill set, I feel I'm pretty good at managing the paper. I used to do fun stuff. My background.
Yeah, we talked about the fun stuff for.
Yeah, my background's in marine biology, master's in marine science. Now I just manage contracts and people. and development projects and making sure it's done, in a pragmatic way, an efficient way. My role pretty much is I'm the translator between the permitting planning folks and the lawyers and the engineers. And they don't speak the same language, so making sure both kind of progress at the same speed. I think I told you this.
Yeah,
You don't want the permit folks to get too far ahead of themselves, because then it's an unconstructible project. On the flip side, the engineers will draw a straight line from here to there and not worry about the resources. And then you have a project that's engineered that's no longer to be permitted. So just understanding the give and take between how the planning development goes and what's constructible and, engineerable. Anything's constructible, right? Just what's the cost? So that's pretty much been the last 15 years of my life. And then, on top of that, I live in Marshfield, have kids, care a ton about, our open space. I love living here because of that. I'm a frequent outdoors person, whether I'm in, on, or under the water. And yeah, my kids are getting a little older, so I have some extra time to dedicate to the town, and I feel like my skill set would be beneficial.
excellent.
Yeah.
You shared exactly what I recall. I didn't take a lot of notes because we were so blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
Anything you'd like to add?
I was going to vote yes before you cleared the room, so now I'm not so sure what I should do.
It's your call.
Yeah, I think your experience and perspective will be a great fit to add to the board, so thanks for stopping up.
Thanks.
Eric?
So, Brian, just to see if I'm understanding it right, so looking at your extensive background and all that, so when you get on the CPC, how do you plan on applying it in regards to, am I right that you want to try and put your background into and apply it to the CPC?
I think it's just, my understanding of the CPC, you get multiple projects, evaluate them on their merit, their efficiency, their actual benefit to the town, and that includes evaluating the budget, potential consultants or engineers to do that, who will be managing it. I just think my project management could provide some insight, and I know it's a diverse team on the CPC. The marine biology piece, almost, as you folks know, every property in town touches a wetland or abuts a wetland or has groundwater issues. And just maybe like the technical piece, I can add not more than, but I think I can contribute on the technical side about, you guys get a lot of reports, they're big reports.
Oh, we do.
Sometimes you read the executive summary, sometimes you flip to the figures, but understanding what's behind those figures, the statistics that were used, the assumptions, I think that's the technical piece that I think can get overlooked, right, when you're in a rush to approve something. I know you guys are strapped in terms of what's coming at you, the CPC is, so I'm happy to read a technical report, mark it up, find the shortcomings typically. Like I said, I've worked with a lot of consultants. I was one. So just understanding how, I've listened to a lot of these meetings, right? And how to mitigate change orders, right? And then coming back to the select board and saying, well, this one project's overrun. That could be mitigated by, did they put 20% contingency on the upfront part? So then what's getting approved is what's getting built, and there's not overruns or schedule delays. So I think it's kind of the project management technical aspect.
So in essence, you'll be help looking after how the taxpayers' money is spent. And I would say that if you didn't like the way something looked, you'd have no problem voting no on it.
Well, yeah, or I'd make it bleed, red line with the marker.
Okay. No, that's all we can ask for, Brent.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We also talked about the energy committee, so down the line, when you're getting yourself all acclimated to what's going on in the CPC, I want you to come and visit myself or any of the board members, and or of course our town administrator as well, and reach out to us at any time in the process. I'm not sure if you'll get the vote from all of us, but
Okay.
I'm just putting myself
Okay.
out there. So in light of all of this, I'd like to ask that the board moves to appoint Brent Crochane to the Community Preservation Committee. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion been made and duly seconded. Roll call is in order. Ms. Fidler?
Aye.
Mr. Darcy?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Everyone's a
Unanimous vote to
comedian.
appoint Brent Crochane to the Community Preservation Committee.
Thank you. I want to
Thanks.
shake your hand.
Okay. Can you bring a sword?
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah. Excited to get started.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, take care.
Of course. See you, Dennis.
See you.
Bye, Dennis.
Dennis.
Okay. So we're moving on to number 3, which is, I have my notes. Discussion and vote to accept a draft warrant article, which is a voluntary donation on tax bills for elderly or disabled residents to be submitted to the special town meeting warrant. Now, I've tried to work through this, and I think this is a really good idea for the town. Other towns in our surrounding area do have this on their tax bills. So I'd like to have your support on this, and I'm going to read the article as it is drafted for our town meeting. So article to be determined, the number on it. But will the town vote to accept the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 60, Section 3D, allowing the town to design and designate a place on its municipal tax bills or motor vehicle excise tax bills, or to mail with such tax bills a separate form, whereby the taxpayers of the town may voluntarily check off, donate, and/or pledge an amount not less than $1 for, or such other designated amount which shall increase the amount due, and authorize the establishment of Elderly and Disabled Taxation Fund for the purpose of defraying the real estate taxes of elderly and disabled persons of low income. And further, that there be established a taxation aid committee consisting of the chair of the Board of Assessors, the town treasurer collector, and 3 residents of the town appointed by the select board for staggered terms of up to 3 years, fixed to identify the recipients of such aid and make rules and regulations necessary to carry out the provisions of said law or take any other action relative thereto. And the explanation is, as I mentioned earlier, but this article requests that the town vote to accept this provision of the Massachusetts General Law that allows the town to add a place on the tax bills or mailing for residents to make a voluntary donation to a elderly and disabled taxation fund administered by 5-member taxation aid committee comprised of the elected chair of the Board of Assessors, the treasurer, collector, and 3 residents to identify low-income elderly or disabled taxpayers in need of real estate tax assistance. So I think this is a really good idea.
Yeah.
Not to pat myself on the back, but the way it's going to, the way we envision it going is a little bit, we need to have some foundation, but I think that with the Board of Assessors and the treasurer collector, they have the professional skill set to figure this out and make this happen. So with that being said, I'd like your comments.
No, I think it's a great idea. I think it'll sail through town meeting, it'll be very popular, and it's a nice thing to do.
Okay, Eric.
I mean, when I was looking at this, I'm like, it looks good, but, you hear more and more people discuss, especially going to establishments, whether it's a sub shop, whatever, and at the end of the transaction, you get stuck right in front of your face, the tip. And I almost look at it this way as the same thing. It's like, well, now it's like a tip. It's like when that screen comes up, now it's like, all right, well, if I don't, I look like an ass. And no, I understand the basis of this, which is a nice basis. That's my concern is that, I mean, let me ask this much, I guess. Is there another way that a donation can be made in regards to this organization? or these organizations, I guess.
So we have, if you're asking, is there a donation for elderly and another organization for donations to disabled persons? I would say there are mechanisms in place for that, but the town as itself, we have the Council on Aging that works on a donation, but this is not what that is. So I think that we are in a position where we have the ability to start something new, and I do hear you, because I always do 5%, 10%, 20, whatever it is, right.
So
I understand what you're saying, but this isn't that. This is the crutch of the problems that we're seeing in people paying for their real estate taxes.
Well, I look at it this way also, Lynn, and it's, I guess it's a Band-Aid on a situation that probably could be controlled at the town level as well in regards to the amount of taxes or property taxes that said seniors are paying as well. Well, the rest of us, I should say, are paying in this town as well. So though I do see that it has a nice touch to it in regards to offering this and letting people make the option of doing it, all that, I am concerned that it has that aura of going to the sub shop and all of a sudden when you get done with your transaction, how much to pay in a tip,
I don't want you, so when you say a tip, this is not what that is. I don't like.
I know it's not a tip.
Apples to apples
but when you get
there,
these
so-
bills, it's like you're gonna have that box glaring right at you.
You're going to have an option to check a box when you're on, I don't know if you do your taxes online. I do mine online, but I'm not sure if you do. You're looking at me like.
Oh, no, I was just listening to you. I was just letting you continue on, that's all.
Yeah, so I think that, I don't want to argue in.
No, I
in
wasn't trying to argue.
No, I don't want to argue a point that I think is not worthy of this, but I do, honestly, a Band-Aid is better than nothing at all. So at this point, I think.
I won't disagree with that.
Okay,
But
so let's
I
move
think
to
at the end of the day.
We
I
do
think-
have more work to do.
I know that.
I will admit
Well, the whole thing is that I do have
We can agree on that.
I think at the town level, we could probably address it even better, in official capacity.
But this is a start, correct?
I guess you could look at it that way, yes.
Okay.
The other thing is, when I was reading this, I looked up the law. So this covers a good portion of it between the beginning and ending of 3D, but it's the middle that I want to discuss. Any amounts donated to said funds shall be deposited into a special account in the general treasury and shall be in the custody of the treasurer. The treasurer shall invest said funds at the discretion of the officer, board, commission, committee, or other agency of the city or town, who or which or is otherwise authorized and required to invest trust funds in the city or town and subject to those same limitations applicable to trust fund investments, except as otherwise specified herein. The fund, together with the interest earned thereon, shall be used for the purpose specified in the section without further appropriation. So, in the section, the treasurer shall invest the funds at the discretion of the officer, board, commission, committee, or other agency of the city or town, of which is authorized. Who would that be?
Treasurer collector.
Chapter 60, Section 3D. I just want to make sure.
So,
Well, it's identified here in the article itself, and I did look at it.
well, it says
There's a lot
officer,
going on
board,
tonight.
commission, committee. So the officer, meaning the treasurer, would be the one that,
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, please.
So, Mr. Kelly, it's written to be applicable to different styles that they have in various governments. And our particular government, treasurer collector in this town is responsible for not only managing the funds, but also the investment under state municipal law.
I think, Bob, you had a comment?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Maresco. There are other forms of government where there is an investment board that makes those decisions that the treasurer makes in Marshfield.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I just want to
Yep.
make clarity on it, because it has, different things in regards to oversight, so I just want to make.
Yeah, and, you know, with
Who,
the,
on our end, is the person that's.
and that's why he's bonded, and he's a bonded official, so if he makes, you know, bad investment decisions, that we have ability to make a claim on a fidelity bond.
Well, we hope that doesn't happen.
We hope never.
Okay, other than that, I think that was all the question, in regards to
Okay.
the article itself, I had.
All right,
So-
thank you for those questions. So the board moves to submit for consideration of town meeting a warrant article asking the town to accept a provision of the Marshfield general laws that allows the town to add a place on tax bills or mailing for residents to make a voluntary donation to an elderly and disabled taxation fund for the purpose of defraying the real estate taxes of elderly and disabled persons of low income. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion been made and duly seconded. Roll call is in order. Ms. Fidler?
Aye.
Mr. Darcy?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Unanimous vote.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Steve. Okay, moving forward on number 4 is introduction of rules and regulations for use of town property to be reviewed by the select board under their policies and procedures to be voted on March 10th, 2025. Any recommended changes be sent to the town administrator no later than March 5th. So this here is part of a response to our town meeting where our town voted in Article number 7 and to change the section 180-10 of our bylaws of peace and good order and police regulations. And you'll recall this was passed, and this had to do with the select board approving 12C licensing caterers and accepting with advance written consent of the select board and pursuant to a special license issued under Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 14. If you'd like to look at this, but I'm sure you both remember it. So that's what this is about. So we have some time to look at it, but we're getting later. If you have any comments on the forefront of this, otherwise, I'd like you to take a peek at it, and we will get back to it, present any editorial changes as described, and that's pretty much the gist. Does that work for you?
Yes.
Does that work for you, Eric?
And taking this up the next meeting?
Yeah, so you're going to use this, you're going to use a period of time, what did we just say, the 5th?
March 5th.
March 5th, to get any editorial comments back to the town administrator. I'll look at it as well, and we'll get a clean copy with the red line of it. And we'll move forward on it. So this is just an introduction of the rules and regulations.
I do have a question on it.
Sure.
Is this going to be sent out to those, to said organizations to see if there's anything that they want to address on it, by chance?
So.
Or at least notify them, and then we can potentially, if need be, post it? I mean,
I'm thinking specific of Michelle Jarvis, who initiated some changes on Article 7. But this was presented by our town council as another option, as an option to us, and I believe there was a templated for us, but I see no reason why, as part of our agenda this evening, it is public, it's available to the public, I guess, so.
so would you like,
I can reach out to her or whoever, or we could put it on the,
that's what I was going to say, put it on the town
on the
website?
town website.
that.
Will we do that? Everybody
we
in
may.
favor of that? Okay. All right, so let's put it on the town website, but responses need to be back by March 5th. Okay? Directly to our town administrator. All right. So, do I need to make a motion? I don't believe so.
No.
All right, so let's move on to number 5. Discussion and vote on acceptance of the donation of the 4 plaques for the Plymouth County Commissioners that we had available at our last meeting. and our town administrator was nice enough to pay for those, so that's why this is on here. Any questions or comments?
No, thank you.
Any questions or comments?
Is it a donation or
It
is
is a
it
donation
from Mike?
from Mike, like he would donate the wreaths and all the other things that he provides the town.
I see on the bill here, it's Town of Marshfield.
Yep, so he's donating it to the town of Marshfield, and the select board
Well, the bill says,
presented.
the bill says Town of Marshfield, so if Mike,
What? He paid it with his private credit card, yeah. Thank you, Mike, for doing that.
there's nothing to document that, so, I mean, I
Well,
mean, if you look at it, I don't see it as a donation by Mike, so, I mean, if we can get some more, how can you look at it? Something else to
So this-
back it up, then
credit card receipt. So this was, just so the public and everybody's aware, this was a $202 that was spent to present the plaques to the 4 commissioners, or the 3 commissioners, and then the treasurer. Okay? Are you okay with moving forward on that? And,
I can't vote on it in its current way, if that's what you're asking me.
okay. So
I
you're
can't vote,
asking.
I can't vote in favor, I should say.
So you're asking for a credit
A
card
receipt or something, yeah,
Okay.
or even documentation that, in this acknowledging that this is a donation from Mike.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to move forward with this. Sorry, just a second. Where am I? The board moves to accept a donation from Michael Maresco in the amount of $192 for the plaques given to the Plymouth County Treasurer and Plymouth County Commissioners, thanking them for a great job that they did collectively administrating the CARES Act and ARPA funds, requesting a receipt of the payment made by Michael Maresco. Does that make sense? Receipt. We know you have the receipt. You're a good guy.
Kate has the receipt, yeah.
Okay, so if you have the receipt, then we're good. So I'm going to just leave it at that.
Are you going to read it again?
Yeah, I'm just going to read it. If she has the receipt, I believe everything that's gone on. So I'll read it one more time. The board moves to accept a donation from Michael Maresco in the amount of $192 for the plaques given to the Plymouth County Treasurer and Plymouth County Commissioners, thanking them for the great job that they did collectively administering the CARES Act and ARPA funds. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion been made and duly seconded. Roll call is in order. Ms. Fidler?
Aye.
Mr. Darcy?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
3-0. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And they were very appreciative as well. Okay, so we are at number 7. Discussion and vote on request for permission for Troop 424 to utilize the Town Hall parking lot for recycling drive on the following 2025 Saturday dates: April 5th, May 17th, June 21st, July 19th, August 9th, September 20th, October 18th, and November 15th. And they do this, and they do it out along the street there. Never any problems.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
if I may.
please.
So this is their third, this will be their third go-around of doing this, and
Yep.
There's no issues. They do it on a Saturday. A lot of people come by to either drop off their cans and bottles or make a donation, and we allow them to store their supplies, their plastic bags and boxes in there, and then at the end of their drive that day, they take the cans off premise and cash them in somewhere.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments?
No, thank you.
Any questions or comments?
No, that's it.
Okay. The board moves to approve the dates for Susan Allen of Troop 424's Recycling Drive utilizing Townhouse parking lot for the following Saturdays: April 5th, 2025, May 17th, 2025, June 21st, 2025, July 19th, 2025, August 9th, 2025, September 30th, 2025, October 18th, 2025, and November 15th, 2025. Do I have a?
Madam Chair.
Did I miss one?
September 20th, you said September 30th.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
September 20th, 2025. Thank you for that correction. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion been made and duly seconded. Roll call is in order. Ms. Fidler?
Aye.
Mr. Darcy?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Unanimous vote to approve.
Okay. Number 8, and we're getting there. How's everybody holding up in there? Okay.
Well, now that it's cooler, we're doing better.
Oh my gosh, it was a stifling evening.
You think it's cool?
I was so hot.
Well, it's not as cool as my office, no.
Number 8 is a discussion and vote on request for permission to accept 10 donations on behalf of the Veteran Services. So these Veteran Services Office, the Veteran Services Office is pleased to present that we have $100 from William A. Thomas, $500 from Edmund Raymond in memory of Ed Sullivan, $50 from Mary Beth Southerton in memory of Ed Sullivan, $120 from Janice Koenig in memory of Ed Sullivan, $100 from Mr. and Mrs. Ed Timlin in memory of Ed Sullivan, $100 from Mr. and Mrs. Joseph Hanlon in memory of Ed Sullivan, $50 from Miss Donna Spear in memory of Ed Sullivan, $200 from Mr. and Mrs. George Podmore in memory of Tom Marigan, $250 from M.A. Valve Painting Services in memory of Larry Whalen, and $50 from Mr. and Mrs. Gruss in memory of Larry Whalen as well. So it's always sad to have all these things, and Ed Sullivan was such a great guy. So, any questions or comments?
I just think it's nice, all the people who came together to honor the memory of Ed and Larry and Tom.
Yeah, Larry's funeral was something. Quite a gentleman as well. And so many people were at the wake for Ed Sullivan as well.
Yeah.
So it was, you were there, right?
Yes,
Michael?
ma'am.
Yep. Okay, so I'd like to, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think Steve summed it up just
Yeah,
nicely.
thank you, I appreciate it. The board moves to accept the following donations on behalf of the Veteran Services Office, $100, I'm going to repeat it because it's worth repeating, $100 from William A. Thomas, $500 from Edmund Raymond in memory of Ed Sullivan, $50 from Mary Beth Southerton in memory of Ed Sullivan, $120 from Janice Koenig in memory of Ed Sullivan, $100 from Mr. and Mrs. Ed Timlin in memory of Ed Sullivan, $100 from Mr. and Mrs. Joseph Hanlon in memory of Ed Sullivan, $50 from Miss Donna Spear in memory of Ed Sullivan, $200 from Mr. and Mrs. George Podmore in memory of Tom Merrigan, $250 from M.A. Falvey Painting Services in memory of Larry Whalen, and $50 from Mr. and Mrs. Gruss in memory of Larry Whalen. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion been made and duly seconded. Roll call is in order. Ms. Fidler?
Aye.
Mr. Darcy?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Unanimous vote to accept the donation on behalf of our Veterans Office.
Thank you. Almost there. Discussion and vote on request for permission to hold 10th Annual ALS 1 Polar Plunge on April 5th, 2025. And you will not see me there. I do not like to be cold. But maybe I'll go down and just give them a cheer, okay? Any questions or comments on this?
No, thank you.
So they usually arrive on site to set up at 10 a.m. Registration opens at 12 p.m. Plunges at 1 p.m. And they're usually out by 2:30, just so you guys know. They will work with the police department about the cost to have the PD. Is that for the bathrooms open? And they usually have a DJ. They hire a food truck to be on site, and they typically have one tent that will It's to be set up in the middle of the parking lot for registration. The past 2 years, the fire permit, they've gotten a fire permit for a few people who bring contained fire pits in the parking lot. So, that's about it. I'm just gonna look. Since we have held it in Marshfield, it has raised $500,000. That's amazing. Okay. Any questions or comments?
No, thank you.
Okay. Questions or comments?
Just, looks like a good event, and obviously what you said there, they've raised a good sum of money here in Marshfield, and I wish them well, and stay warm.
Yeah. Okay, the board moves to approve on behalf of Ashley Corbin, Development Director for ALS 1, the 10th Annual Polar Plunge on Saturday, April 5th, 2025, at Wrexham Beach, pending sign-off from MPD, Beaches, MFD, Building Department, and Board of Health. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion been made and duly seconded. Roll call is in order. Ms. Fidler?
Aye.
Mr. Darcy?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Unanimous vote to approve the 10th Annual Polar Plunge.
All right. So that concludes our fun for the evening. Okay, seeing no further business on the agenda, the board moves to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion been made and duly seconded. Roll call is in order. Ms. Fidler?
Aye.
Mr. Darcy?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Unanimous vote to adjourn the Select Board's meeting for February 24, 2025.
The time is 9:00.